God of the universe, maker of the stars. Who am I that you would know my name?
Well, we thought we were going to have a full house tonight with Jared, myself, and Alex, but the last minute, Jared had something in his. I'm just going to say that if you would please pray for Jared. He just some things that are happening there, and he might have something to say about that in coming weeks. So, but with that, Alex, you're basically back at the house. You're probably
Mm-hmm.
still settling down from the drive home, and you still look like a nurse, is from what I'm
Yeah.
hearing.
Yeah. Still in the scrubs. It's good. We're gonna rock and roll.
Okay, that's fine.
Mm.
We don't plan we don't plan our programs week by week. We normally kind of talk about them a little bit, a couple of texts back and forth. But last week, Jared and myself did a program on drawing near to God. How close is God in your life? And this week, something I didn't even think about it when I text you guys, but go back, the death of Charlie Kirk. Now, I'm kind of out of the mix of the guys that I hang out with. Um, you know, they're pretty much more the Dolly Parton crowd. Um, so I mean, or something like that. One of the guys I was playing golf with the other day, he actually has country music playing, which I can't stand. That his genre, and as I'm trying to hit the ball, the theme song from Beverly Hillbillies comes up. Okay, so these are not the guys that are just like in tune. So how from where you're at, we haven't talked about this. Where you
Mm.
are with work, what are you hearing still regarding Charlie Kirk?
It was very interesting because I heard absolutely nothing.
Wow.
Not a word from anybody around me. It was one of those things I was watching for. It was like, I wonder if, because, and I was of the crowd where I was not in college at the time that he was really,
Yeah.
pushing more on his campus and stuff. So I was one of the more of the people who learned more about him after his death
Yeah.
than during the time because I wasn't aware of him. And, God still uses horrible things. Your death does not stop God from using you to do his work.
True. True.
Um, and so I've learned far more about it. But disturbingly enough, I didn't find anybody saying anything at work about the events. I also didn't about Charlie Kirk, and I didn't hear anybody say anything about the shooting that happened yesterday. Yesterday for us as we record.
Is this just because of where you work? I mean, you are around death all the time. We've talked about your time
Hmm.
during COVID and how bad that
Hmm.
was. Uh, are the people that you're working with kind of immune, not that's a terrible term to use. Uh, Kind of
Desensitized.
desensitized. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'd say there's a lot of desensitization to death. There's no way you continue to work in the medical field without becoming a little bit desensitive. If you're traumatized by every death you see, you can't do your job. The pain and suffering, people seeing people in pain and suffering never goes away. I can vouch for
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I can say a lot of it is that I wonder if a lot of times I find my people I work with just end up kind of their head not any kind of their head buried under their work at the moment. I'd say there's a huge, understaffing thing. So there's not a lot of gathering around the water cooler to talk
Okay.
kind of thing to have a
Okay.
lot of conversation.
Okay.
Though I speak a lot with my coworkers, we end up so overworked. It's usually pretty extensively um, directed towards our patient care and everything
Yeah.
going on with them. And part of it, I think is maybe we're very much um, inundated with the trauma and the death and suffering that's right in front of us that sometimes
Okay.
we don't ever talk about anything outside of it.
Okay.
And I can't share the cases, but it has been a horrendously heavy couple of weeks.
Mm.
At the same time that, Charlie Kirk's death just kind of brought things forward. I can never give any identifying information for my patients,
Sure.
but in an unidentifying manner. I had a patient, a homeless patient, who had had so little food he actually had scurvy right
Wow.
here in the US. Uh, I had another where I had a young woman who'd been abused by her parents.
Mm,
And so, in the middle of this, I don't necessarily find it very surprising when that's directly what's in front of us.
mhm.
I'll admit I was walking in and having not known Charlie Kirk and not known who he was. It was on a room. I looked up. Somebody named Charlie Kirk had been killed. I thought, oh
Yeah.
man, that's terrible.
Yeah.
And I turned right back to the horror in front of me.
Uh,
And so it was only afterward that I learned um, importance is the significance of the event.
mhm.
I guess afterward that I learned of that. I'm like, oh,
Mm.
this was more than just absolutely tragic, but it ended up being more than just another tragedy, but actually an attack
Mm. I'm
on
kind of,
humans.
I get the idea. My father was in World War II, and this was the Germany on one side, Japan on the other side. And if you're in the middle of the battle in the South Pacific, you're probably not going to be really affected by what's going on over in Normandy that much. You're just
Right.
trying to survive on your beach, on your ship, whatever it is. You
Yeah,
don't have
absolutely.
really time for that. Okay,
And
well,
that was, yeah,
wow.
there's an interesting question I was pondering as well. And, maybe that's something, well, I know we're going to go a difference, but if you were to have to summarize someone who should ask the question, and maybe this question's already been asked, but if they look around everything going on, how would you answer someone that asked, why would I care about Charlie Kirk's death in the middle of everything else going on?
You know, um, I have to ask myself kind of the same thing. It's like we all have our sphere of influence.
Hmm.
Like you, didn't know Charlie Kirk. I had heard his name a couple times. My son Daniel, he said I was devastated. We got a friend of mine over in Columbia, South Carolina, I talked to just last week. The same thing. I think one thing that has been is this is a point. I'm not going to say a turning point because that's used too much as a pun right now. This is a monument in this generation.
I agree.
Okay,
Yeah, that makes
so
sense.
I vaguely remember the shooting of JFK, shooting of Martin Luther King. You go back, hundreds of years prior to, people were totally affected by the assassination of Abraham Lincoln. For
Mm,
my generation, I remember exactly where I was on 9/11.
same. I was just old enough
Okay,
to
you
be
were
able to
old enough.
absolutely remember to this day.
So
Mhm.
this is, this current generation, whatever they're calling it, and I can't stand all those terms, um, is because it's just pigeonholes everybody. This is the 9/11 of 2025.
Mm,
Young people, teenagers, young adults, that his life was so instrumental in their lives, they will forever remember where they were, what they were doing when that news came out.
And I'd say that's plenty of reason to care.
Yeah,
Whether his death directly affected you, we should absolutely sit up and pay attention, understanding just how strongly it affected an entire generation of people.
it
And
did.
that's reason enough for
It
us
did.
to
But
sit up and pay attention.
I want to go a totally different direction regarding Charlie Kirk, and that
Hmm.
is that he had professing he was a very strong Christian, but had departed from the traditions of Christianity in an area. And that was that he was turning his phone off, spending family time Friday night to Saturday night, which, wow, Alex, I think that's called Shabbat.
Hmm.
Going
Yes,
back
sir.
to Genesis chapter 1, we're going to kind of unpack that here in a moment. But so this was kind of a recent thing with Charlie. And you, Alex Stiles, share something with Charlie Kirk, is that Shabbat is kind of a recent thing to you.
Yes, absolutely.
So,
Going on about 3 years now, I
okay.
think.
So
Yeah.
before we
hmm
actually get into the Shabbat and some of the details and some of the things that happened and why, Christianity has gone to Sunday, all that kind of stuff, and we'll probably try to do that again in coming weeks with Jared. How has Shabbat affected your life
My. Hmm.
as a person that, as you're taking that sip of whatever it is, um, when I met you, you were having to work most Saturdays.
Yes.
Um, you know, Mary and the kids came on Shabbat to our service.
hmm
Alex is working. But
hmm
now, amazing as it is, over these last 3 years, your life has worked out to where Alex is not working anymore on Shabbat.
Nope. No weekends.
So,
Yes, sir.
so what is that? What is that to you? How has that affected you?
This has affected me in that I did not realize how badly I was missing Shabbat until I had it, until I actually observed it.
Experienced it.
Um, it's to actually experience it and observe it and partake of it and dig a little deeper into it of, what does it mean? And I will say that, I grew up uh, Southern Baptist denominational
Hmm.
Christian there, and I had Sabbath on Sundays, but
Hmm.
I didn't observe it in that manner. Hear me out. I went to church for a long time, but it wasn't that different of a day. You just went to church because that was your morning, and you didn't go to work your 9 to 5 job, but you did whatever else.
Hmm.
And so I started digging into it when I realized I won't try and get too much ahead of us, but things started changing around when I learned this fellow Mike Clayton, who sometimes teaches some Hebrew. He started teaching me that because I'd seen a few different translations where it gets translated as honor the Shabbat.
Hmm.
Um, Other ones it's to remember. And then what I found as you were teaching me was that the word that is best used is actually a good deal closer to guard
Yes.
the Shabbat. In fact, is the
Shamar.
exact same word that is used for a soldier guarding a gate, guarding a city.
And the same
Dude,
word that Adam would have been told to guard his garden and
yes.
his wife, by the way.
Yeah, right.
That
Yeah.
didn't work out well.
It did not, you
Mm,
know. And so that takes it the idea of taking it to a whole nother level of, oh, wait, it's not just I go to church in the morning. You mean he wants more? Well, it turns out if you'll give him more on that day, you start receive a lot. You're not the one that ends up actually giving.
mm,
You're the one that receives on that day,
yeah. You
that day of
mentioned,
renewal.
oh
hmm
yeah, yeah, you mentioned going to church on, Southern Baptist. I mean, that's what I grew up in. Now, I grew up in North Florida where we had the blue laws. My mother would go get gas on Saturday because there was no gas station open on Sunday. You didn't go to a restaurant because none of them were open. You would have had to go in and cook your own meal. When I working for Winn Dixie, when they start opening on Sunday afternoon, I mean it was a big deal.
Mm.
So this was a different lifestyle. Today it is and this is I'm not being judgmental, it's just pointing out something that Sunday has been turned into kind of the holy hour where you come in, as one
Mm.
pastor said, you come in at 11 o'clock sharp and leave at 12 o'clock dull. And then you go to lunch afterwards and then you do your own thing. So the difference between the word Shabbat and the word Sabbath
Mm-hmm.
is where we actually get started here is that both the words, yes, mean cease or they mean to rest, but the word that we get Sabbath from is really a man-made word
Mm-hmm.
and was used to give new definition to the word if needed.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to go, first of all, go back to Genesis chapter 1 and 2. Everything should line up there. So in
Yes.
Genesis chapter 2, It says, "Thus the heavens and the earth were finished, along with everything in them. On the seventh day, God was finished with his work which he had made. So he rested on the seventh day from all his work which he had made. God blessed the seventh day and separated it as holy, because on that day God rested from all his work which he had created, so that it itself could produce." Now, this is a complete Jewish Bible translated by David Stern. And that thing at the end, so it in itself could produce, that is a Hebrew that does come out of Hebrew. But you got to kind of search it out a little bit, and that's a different subject. So the word Shabbat, though, which is tied to this word for the seventh day, is is not just, it doesn't just mean to rest or to cease. It is a definition of a time period.
Mhm.
So in the scripture, evening and morning is the first day. Hey, interesting enough, why is it that that's like that? I was been thinking this. I thought about this many years ago. Evening and morning are the first day. So in the evening we rest. In the morning, what do? We work. We work during the day. So even in the creation of the earth, prior to there even being human beings on it, God was giving us this message that we are to rest in him, and out of that rest comes our work.
Yes. Yes.
But then
You
in
know,
the end we have this this seventh day, which is a that's like the kingdom, that 1,000-year reign that people will look at in Revelation. That's the seventh day. Okay, he's not going to change that. So this word is this he rested on the seventh day. How did we go from seventh day to the first day of the week, Alex?
so, we got to go back
Methinketh you
to
have studied this.
a little bit. You got to go back to the foundations of the Catholic Church. As the Catholic Church is rising, not in as, and I specifically say this, as the Catholic Church departed from what the Scripture teaches. All right.
Okay.
As they departed from this, they turned the apostles and the disciples, and they turned them into saints,
Mm-hmm.
and to some extent, they worship them. They pray to them instead of praying to God.
Still do.
There's a whole that still do, right? So as this parting comes from, you have where, the common people, and I say this, you got to picture, the medieval era and before that, where the gap between wealth and poverty was very massive. Right?
Mm-hmm.
You have like the less than 1% that are super wealthy. Everyone else is dirt poor. And in many scenarios, the middle class doesn't exist or is
Mm.
very small. The priests, the monks, if you will, the friars who wore simple clothing and came out and taught to these villages were considered by the common people to be much holier and much more closer to God in many ways than the Pope.
Mm.
Because you got to understand, as they're sitting there starving to death, and you're looking at the Pope literally dressed in gold.
Mm-hmm.
This creates some friction.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So as you have this church, and I specifically say the Catholic Church, in their departing from the teaching of feed the hungry, nurture the widows, and instead they're accumulating wealth and political power to their own name for the purposes of power itself.
And
Not accumulating wealth.
today the Catholic Church is, I think it's the number one landholder in the world.
There,
Followed,
yes.
yeah,
Hmm.
it's the top few is the Catholic Church, McDonald's, and the LDS, the Mormons.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, it says a
Mm.
lot about our society right there
Yeah.
worldwide.
Okay. Yeah.
But yeah, absolutely. So as they're accumulating wealth and power for the sake of wealth and power itself, not to have money to be able to do good, but to accumulate the wealth and power itself, they have to distance themselves from Judaism.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can't owe something as they view it. You can't owe something to another religion as they view Judaism, and be all powerful and the authoritative figure yourself. This is why they reestablished their center of power to Rome, to get it away from Israel. And this is also why they adjust the Ten Commandments, the 10 words of Adonai.
And
The
this is
first one,
also in the fourth
Mhm.
century, which is a time period of Jew hatred. Wow, imagine that would have happened back then
Yes.
too.
hmm Yes, time period of Jew hatred, pushed by Catholicism as well as pushed by the world. The
Hmm?
entire world has hated. We don't have to point fingers at any one person. The entire world has risen up against Judaism time and time again, as they will.
And has
Um,
today. I mean, look at the United
mhm,
Nations, 100 and something nations got up and walked out when Bibi Netanyahu, and I mean, I'm not a real fan of Bibi, but to not even give the
mhm.
man respect.
Sure. Walk out on the leader of Israel, but stand there and let the leaders of the terrorists talk all they want to in
Yeah,
some manner.
yeah, and
Right.
applaud them.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. As you have all this multiple things of the Catholic Church seeking to move away from Judaism. You have them dropping the first word of Adonai, the first commandment, I am the Lord your God, which brought you out of Egypt. And instead, they drop that one and they split the last commandment in half.
Hmm.
The 10th commandment of do not covet your neighbor's wife or his possessions, livestock, whatever. That's all one commandment together. But when you see the 10 commandments printed, they've split the last one in half so they can still have 10.
Okay.
Um, it's a problem there, okay? But you see, this entire part about it is that you cannot be giving credit if you're going to be the authoritative figure and have the power of it. And this very much is what they drive for, this separation, this dividing themselves away from the roots. And this ends up pushing and shaping the entire Catholic faith for centuries moving forward as they push themselves away from Judaism and push the center closer and closer towards the power of the Pope and the power of the priests involved. Every denomination that split away from them, and many of those denominations that split away were the founders of America, uh, returned to something that they found in the scripture that they felt was important that Catholicism had dropped.
Hmm.
Even if you come all the way to Baptists, this is what I know best, right? If you come to Baptists and when they split, their big thing, the age of accountability, right?
Yeah.
Catholics will sprinkle the baby, and Baptists are like, no, you have to know what you're doing
Hmm.
there. And then there's a few others that have split over other things, right? But everything that split away from Catholicism split towards returning towards the scripture and to divide themselves so that they were no longer meeting in the synagogues with the Jews as the original church did every Shabbat, but to have a different day. And they come up with a few different reasons. You're like, oh, he rose on this day. Yeshua rose on this day, so we're going to honor the
Hmm.
day he rose. Not the day you're going to honor the day he rose from the dead. You're not going to honor the day that he went to services. You're not going to honor Shabbat the way he did.
Yeah. Hey, you mentioned the early church. I would correct one thing there is that there
Please.
was never such a thing as a church until the
Mhm.
Nicene Council in 323 or whatever that year was. That was when the establishment of the Catholic Church came forth.
Yes.
Prior
Yes.
to that, everything you see in the book of Acts, nothing was ever called a church.
Mm-mm.
These were Jews and then Gentiles coming into the covenant who were now going to synagogue, and their
Mhm.
lifestyle was pretty much the exact same as everybody else's. The only thing is they believed that Yeshua, who many today term him as Jesus, that Yeshua it was the Messiah. That was the split. But this was a sect of Judaism, and it was not
Mhm.
until Marcion and Constantine that the church was established on the whole concept of upon this rock I will build my church. That's all about authority. What you talked about,
Mhm.
okay?
Absolutely. They came to be about authority.
And this is not something that we're just bringing out that nobody else knows about. All you have to do is go online and put this thing into your search engine. The early church, I mean, church fathers, okay, this is
Mhm.
denominations and all kinds of stuff. They talked about that the Catholic Church had changed the day.
Mhm. Absolutely.
So Alex, let me ask you a question here. what does it matter? Okay, I mean, we're proponents, both of us are proponents of the seventh day, but for those that say, well, I want to have my my Shabbat or my Sabbath on Sunday or Tuesday afternoon or something, what does
Mhm.
it matter, Alex?
There's two interesting. I'll take 2 points to that. I'll go. I'll go both two ways at that. All right. So the
Softball.
first one's, yeah, yeah. No, you threw me a really easy one there.
Yeah.
That make careful, y'all. That means he's warming up to something. So pray for me. So I'm gonna handle this easy one and get warmed up here. So first one is interesting enough. English, Greek. English is a terrible language, but in English, I have these two words. It's either Sunday and maybe it's my Sabbath. All right.
Hmm.
You don't go to church. You don't do that. It's just Sunday.
Hmm.
If you do, it's Sabbath. Well, there's two different words. Find me another word for Saturday in Hebrew besides Shabbat. As far as I understand it, that is the definition of the day,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Right?
By
It
the way,
is the.
yeah, God's definition, by the way.
I agree. Absolutely. I
Okay. Yeah.
100%
Yeah.
agree. This part I want to ponder that one. There is no variation in it.
Oh.
Someone politely asked me, there's no variation. There's no change in that. And someone asked me, well, are you sure they've got it right? I'm like, well, for at least 4,000 years. Yeah, we haven't lost track of the calendar for at least 4,000.
Hmm.
Only a couple thousand more back that to only a couple thousand before that for till we believe till the dawn of creation.
Hmm.
Now, as this person who asked this question, I could understand that if they're in a believer in evolution and they were trying to ask if we'd kept track over millions of years. I'm like, well, now if that's what you believe, I could understand you would have a question how we tracked the seventh day. But I don't believe there were millions of years. So yes, for 6,000 years, I absolutely believe we've got the seventh day correct.
Hmm.
So one, that would be my first answer, is that there is no separate day for Sabbath and Saturday, and it's Shabbat.
Yeah.
It's the definition of the day. The second one is, I would have to ponder an emotional answer there. We've used this one before, and I love this. Our covenant relationship with our Father is compared to marriage for a reason. You want to learn about God and your relationship with Him, you should study your own marriage, both the things that have gone well in it and the things that you've screwed up in it. Not that you and I are ever, well, you and I have to admit to that. Our wives listen to this podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, like, if I walk up and be like, Mary, I think I'm going to celebrate our anniversary in June. It's warmer.
Hmm.
So, I'll put this two ways. If I pick a day out of that day out of the year, suppose I pick June 1st, all right? And on June 1st, I honor my wife and my anniversary with my wife. Would it bring some joy to my wife if I honored our anniversary on June 1st? If I treat her special? Yeah, okay, I'm treating her special. But what happens when, December 15th, I remember it, Mary, December 15th rolls by and I ignore it? That would hurt. I'm not saying you can't honor your God on a wrong day. And I say wrong day, I believe that.
Hmm. Hmm.
I'm not saying I couldn't honor my wife on the wrong day of the year and it wouldn't bring her some joy that I took a day to honor her. But it would hurt when I didn't honor the actual day of our marriage.
Okay. Now, here's a kind of an interesting twist of what you just said. All right.
Mhm.
And I know Mary well enough. Mary would be like, okay, Alex, whatever. But I mean, it's not going to go over well in the end.
No, it's not. It's not.
No, yeah, 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 we might see a couple of smiles and a little laughter, but I'm not sure you'd like it. Um, I better get myself out of that one before I get in trouble with Mary. So, your marriage.
Hmm.
Marriage is a blank between two people. What's the biblical
Covenant.
word? Huh?
Covenant.
Marriage is
Covenant.
a covenant between two people.
That was another
That,
softball.
yeah. And those two people, when they enter into covenant, are going to live in a house.
A house. Okay. Yeah.
House.
Okay. Gotcha.
Okay.
Where is he going with this?
Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
it was in a
So
house.
that
Absolutely.
covenant is about two people that are going to enter into a covenant and they're going to live in a house and they're going to grow their family.
Yes.
And they're looking to the Creator, Shaddai, to provide for them, to bless them.
Hmm.
That is one of his names, and literally it is the protector and provider.
Hmm.
Okay. So wouldn't it be kind of interesting if the Hebrew word Shabbat was a picture of this?
Hmm.
So if the Hebrew word Shabbat is a sheen, a bait, and a tav. Now, you've heard me teach enough on the Hebrew language. The letter sheen is like it's like three. It's like his fingerprint,
Hmm.
and is known as he is the provider. He is the all sufficient one. He is the protector. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. The bait is a house,
The house. Yeah.
and the tav is about a covenant.
Hmm.
So the word Shabbat is about the covenant of his house. And that is why when we look in the scripture, in the specifically in the first five books, but it's all through the prophets and writings, it talks about Shabbat is a sign of the covenant
Hmm.
between us.
Absolutely. Hmm.
And why wouldn't, I mean, if what is the enemy or man going to try to attack? The sign of the covenant.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah. So, and here's the other aspect of this, Alex, is that the end must line up with the beginning.
Hmm.
Okay.
Hmm.
Now, you're a nurse. What happens if the doctor writes a prescription, hands it to the nurse, and the nurse decides, I think I'm going to change this because I just don't like the way that he wrote this, and I'm going to change it before it goes to the pharmacist. What is the
It's
result going to
interesting.
be?
I love this because that's actually an amazing analogy. That's called practicing medicine, and it is outside the scope of my authority.
Ah.
Literally, those are the precise, also legal terms that are used. It is outside the scope of my authority to practice medicine in that manner.
So people are saying that well, I didn't realize how good of an illustration that was until you said that. Okay, uh,
Yep.
so
Hmm.
so people say, well, does the disciples in the book of Acts they were meeting on the first day, which is not true. It says that they were the infamous time that the guy fell out of the window because Paul or Shaul was preaching too long into the night. It says the first day, which was, remember, evening and morning is the first day. Now, I'm not just saying this to Alex; he knows this. But folks, we're giving you tonight. We're giving you in this. You're going to have with Charlie Kirk's book coming out about this subject. I know that a lot of you are like, Mike, we know all that stuff, okay? But you need to have it in your mind because people are going to be. If you've been guarding the Shabbat in your life and people have been laughing at you and calling you names and all kinds of stuff, which I've been there, you're going to get some questions. You need to know how to give an account for what you believe. So if this is if it what you're saying, people say so the disciples were meeting on the first. No, they would have they would have guarded the Shabbat, the seventh day. They were going to gone to synagogue. And then they would have met after Shabbat. It's called Motzei Shabbat in Hebrew. They would have met afterwards, and Paul was teaching. Okay, so there is no difference. So if God, the Creator, is the one that set the seventh day as Shabbat, and then the disciples came along and said, "We don't like that. We're going to change it." What did you just call that nurse that did that?
Practicing outside the scope of their authority.
They didn't have the authority. And the Catholic
Hmm.
Church says, well, we are now the authority. Oh, yeah, they have now become God. which is, by the way, when you become God, that's like breaking one of the 10 commandments, I think.
Mm-hmm.
It says, make no image. And if you have made yourself into an image of God, that's one of the big commandments there.
Mm-hmm. Do not bow down to it and worship it either.
Mm,
Mm-hmm.
okay. So, okay, my mind's going to too many different places.
uh,
Let-
the
let- go ahead.
yeah. No, I think you find that once you start stepping into this idea of this guarding of Shabbat, it affects your whole life
Hmm.
because if you set a deliberate time aside for him, he'll meet you. You once gave an analogy, and I love this, about there being, there are clearly, there's different aspects of God, right? And you gave the analogy that the 6 days of the week are the go forth and do
Hmm.
days, if you will, the authority, the more masculine go forth and do. But the Shabbat is the nurturing day. It's when you're nurtured and you're strengthened. And if you're going through that whole life feeling absolutely wiped out and exhausted, and I just can't handle life, well, and I just don't feel close to God, and I don't feel worthy of any of this, well, did you guard your Shabbat? Did you guard that day of rest and nurturing? So once you do that, it starts opening up a lot of different questions and a lot of thoughts, and it gives you a lot of strength for the day. Those few times where, I've missed the last couple Shabbats. My family we had like the flu, something. It was wretched. It was awful. And that week was awful. I didn't
Hmm.
have Shabbat. I didn't gather with y'all. I was at home. I didn't gather with y'all together. And I missed out on that rejuvenation that was needed to give me
We
the strength to go
we
through the
missed
week.
out because you weren't here. See, that's the thing. It's not just about, it's not just about like you. It's, I mean, when I got the text that you said the other week, you said, we're not going to be able to make it. We're still, struggling with this. And since, Kathy's just gone through some health things, thankfully you're like, we didn't want to make anybody sick.
Mm-mm.
Um, I mean, I was depressed. I'm like, huh? I wanted to, I want to see Judd and James and
Hmm.
you and Mary.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So this time of Shabbat, um, I mean, it's hard to explain, Alex. Uh,
Hmm.
you brought in, you said I didn't know what I was missing until I got it.
Hmm.
It's like all of a sudden it's like, wow, this is something. So it's so countercultural.
It is, and there's no shock at that because it's something that would be attacked.
Hmm.
I think I remember one of your teachings on Shabbat. You went through and you counted the Hebrew letters. You did this particularly for Paul in our group,
Hmm.
because you thought he would find that fascinating.
Hmm.
Do I understand it was correctly? Was it a third? Was it how about you did? Would you ever was still a percentage of the letters are devoted in the command, the 10 words?
Oh,
Is
the Shabbat, the commandment of the Shabbat is it's kind of out of you would think, well, do not kill or something like that, but it's the word the percentage of words used in that commandment about Shabbat is much more than most of the others.
Mhm.
And
Yep.
I've forgotten
That's fine. I knew you.
exactly.
I knew you went over it. But yeah, it's like most of them are like low, no. They're like no kill,
Yeah,
no murder,
yeah.
no steal.
Hmm.
Very short, very simple, very to the
Hmm.
point. But he expounds and expounds upon Shabbat.
Hmm.
And if someone spends some more time on something and they spend some more time explaining to it, I don't think we necessarily need to elaborate. But if we're going to continue using this doctor nurse thing, if this doctor, this neurologist I'm working with says, "Hey, Alex, come here. I got some very detailed orders for you. This is very specific." I'm like, "Ooh, I need to pay attention. This is something serious going on with this patient. I got like 2 paragraphs worth of orders on this patient. I need to pay attention. This is something specific and important."
I just turned over to Exodus 20 here, and this is where the Ten Commandments are. There's two that are there. Now, the Shabbat is the longest of all.
Hmm.
The other
Hmm.
one is you're to have no other gods before me.
Hmm.
which, by the way, ties to Shabbat. Because if we're saying no, I'm not going to obey his commandment about Shabbat, what is that doing? I am making another God before him,
Yes.
me,
Yes.
which is 2 Timothy chapter 3. In the last days, people will be lovers of themselves.
Hmm.
All goes together.
Absolutely. See, that which you worship is whatever you work for, sacrifice time for, sacrifice money for, whatever it is. That's what you worship. If you choose to take that Shabbat and you spend it towards other things, you are worshiping another God.
Mm-hmm.
I've used this analogy before. You don't have to look hard in America to know what we worship. Look at
True.
what we still model our temples after.
Mm-hmm.
The only remaining part of the Greek temples architecture that exists still in America is our Capitol buildings, so government, power,
Mm-hmm.
and our banks. Walk into a bank and tell me it doesn't feel like an altar. It's all quiet. It's all hushed. It's all nice marble floors, big columns out front. It's a temple. You don't have to
Oh,
look far to know what we worship.
I would say some of the sports fields would maybe
You're not wrong.
yeah, the
Coliseum. It's the
Coliseums. Yeah.
Coliseum.
Hey.
Yeah, we
So
do have our Coliseums for
so
sure.
people will say, but this is Jewish. Okay.
Is
In
it?
Genesis chapter 2, there were no Jews. That's not an anti-Jew statement, Jewish statement, okay? I'm thankful to my Jewish brothers and sisters because if it had not been for their obedience to the commandments, I wouldn't have commandments to be restored to. And here's an interesting statement. During the time of the Shoah, the Holocaust, after I think it was the Warsaw Ghetto, they were asked, as some were rescued there, they were asked, while you were in the ghetto, did you keep
Hmm.
Shabbat?
What a thing
And
to ask somebody.
yeah, did you keep Shabbat? And the response was no. It was not that we kept Shabbat, Shabbat kept us.
Yes, I have found, and it is inexplainable in if you try to just work off of mind and body.
Mm-hmm.
Resting one day doesn't benefit you for 7 straight days, 6 more days, I mean. Having one day rested psychologically, it helps, but that doesn't stick with you 6 days later, not significantly, not profoundly. That's because you ignore that we're a creature of spirit. There
Mm-hmm.
is mind, body, and spirit.
Mm-hmm.
And I assure you that until you start approaching yourself as a spirit, until you start approaching yourself, that, one of my favorite philosophers, who was much closer to truth than he realized, I think he was having a bad day when he said it. Someone asked Socrates one day, I could just see Socrates coming out all grumpy one morning, saying, "What do you got today, Socrates?" And Socrates says, "You are nothing but a soul carrying around a corpse." I'm like, I have to
Wow.
picture him having a bad day saying that. That's a direct quote. We don't have the context, but somebody had to have woken Socrates up early for that quote, all right. But he like, sure, all right. I have to understand. I'm not this dirt suit, as you say.
Yeah.
And I need to stop on trying to understand life and understand myself from the standpoint of just this dirt suit, this
Mm-hmm.
body, and just this psychology of just my emotions, and understand that I am a soul that is carrying around this very temporary body. And I promise you, your soul knows whether you kept or skipped Shabbat.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've found that you can get more done in 6 days with Shabbat than you can in seven. So, we talk
Hmm.
about in America, people are working 24/7. Interesting. There's a kind of a convenience store deal over in Jerusalem on Ben Yehuda Street, and the sign says 24/6.
I love it.
Yeah, because it's closed on Shabbat.
Mm.
A couple more things. First of all, is that I'm a big stickler on, and I heard this. That I was taught this from many people. Brad Scott of blessed memory to be one. The end must line up with the beginning.
Yes.
The
So if I
medication
re
from the doctor, if it's not the same when it gets to the pharmacist, something's wrong.
Mhm.
So I want to read people a verse, a couple of verses Isaiah chapter 66. And you
Hmm.
may see that these verses sound a whole lot like the last chapters of Revelation. It says, "For just as the new heavens and new earth that I am making will continue in my presence," says Yudevave, "so will your descendants and your name continue. Every month on the new moon, and every week on Shabbat, everyone living will come to worship in my presence," says Adonai. "As they leave, they will look upon the corpses of the people who rebelled against me, for their worm will never die, and their fire will never be quenched, and they will be abhorrent to all humanity." Hmm. This is past the kingdom, Alex. This is, past that, whatever that tribulation thing is. This is past the 1,000-year reign that is talked about in Revelation. This is after the new heavens and the new earth, and I want to do a program on that sometime, is established. We will come before him to worship when? Every month on the new moon and every week on Shabbat. Do you think it's going to be a big deal if you decide to show up on a different day then?
I'd say that'd be a really big deal.
Yeah, yeah. You
Yeah.
might end up being
Hmm.
one of the ones that, thrown over the balcony to the worm that never dies. Um, so if Shabbat is the seventh day in Genesis chapter 2, and Shabbat is the seventh day in Isaiah chapter 66, then if somebody changed it in the middle, what were those words?
Outside your scope of authority.
Yeah, yeah. I want to go back to his authority. So this is not about us being quote unquote Jewish, though if you think there's something wrong with that, you might have some issues. Judaism has taught us a lot about Shabbat. And maybe one day we can talk, on another program, we talk a little bit more about the dynamics of Shabbat. I just want to challenge people, as Charlie Kirk was starting to do in a book coming out about this. Just disconnect Friday night to Saturday night. You might find in the first day, the first few, the first little while, it's like I'm going crazy. But then you figure it out. I mean, how many naps can you get in before noon on Shabbat sometimes? Right? Okay.
Yeah.
Final words on Shabbat.
Final words on Shabbat, I would say, is when maybe you're hearing there, and maybe, just maybe we're talking to somebody that's like, okay, fine, I'll try this. Could be. We think most of our people we're talking to there. I would say whether you observe it or whether you're starting out, don't leave it early. The greatest blessings have been as I sit out there and I'm watching the sunset. Like it's almost sunset. I'm like, no, no, it's not dark yet. Don't leave it early because some of the greatest blessings will come out there, if you will, at the end, if you will. Don't leave before you leave.
Hmm, that's a good word.
Mm.
Good word. All right. Well, speaking of Alex, we have Sukkot coming up, and your
Mm.
your favorite time of the year. Actually, kind of the time of
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
year that got you moving over in
Mm-hmm.
this direction toward it all, and
Yep.
that's a story for itself, another day. But we are
Yep.
planning on having a Shabbat service at my house this coming Shabbat. So do
Mm.
me a favor.
We've
Oh,
they won't come into focus here, but yep, here we are. They won't
wow.
come into focus because the filter,
There he
but there
goes.
we are.
There you go. You got your
These are
lulav.
these are from the last, actually the one, two, three of them. They for
Okay.
are for the three plant dances I've been at.
We'll have to tell that story again.
We will
Um,
definitely.
yeah,
Hmm.
well, I got the just as I sat down to start to record, I got the email that mine is in the mail from Israel and should be here pretty
Fantastic.
soon. But so we're going to have at our house this coming Shabbat, we're going to have service and get together. So, Alex, do me a favor. Don't show up Sunday, show up Saturday.
You got it.
All right.
All
Talk
right.
soon. Take care, man.
See you soon.
Who am I that you would know my name? What kind of love would walk through fire and meet me in the flame?